host, Mimosa.
And co-host, Kareem.
Welcome to Sometimes We're Bougie and Sometimes We Hood, to healing, navigating grief. It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Welcome back to Sometimes We Bougie and Sometimes We Hood with Auntie Mimosa. I don't know what's going on with Cousin Kareem over there. Hey, Cousin Kareem, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Cousin Kareem. Can you hear? We are live. Cousin Kareem. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. What's going on, world? So, welcome back to Sometimes We Bougie, Sometimes We Hood, where we keep it real about grief, healing, and everything in between. I'm your host, Auntie Mimosa. I don't know. Cousin Kareem, we having technical difficulty. Are you
This is Cousin Kareem.
There we go. There we go. All right. And today we are talking about...
Can you hear me?
I can
Am I
hear
coming
you.
through?
Now you are. Now you are. Now you are. Yes.
Yeah.
Now you are. All right. So, how are things going on that side
All
of the
right,
world?
there we go. Whew, man. Well, we're hit by a lot of nor'easter winds, so we were knocked out again this weekend. So, well, some people on the North Shore got smashed. I mean, they got washed away, so it was kind of messed up. But we're coming out of that.
Right.
We're coming out of it now.
Okay,
where I live at in the center of the island, I was at peace. So
that's
good.
Funny. Come on. I'm trying to
How are you guys doing out there? The weather's still going up and down?
Actually the weather's beautiful. We had it's 80-something degrees right now. Yeah. Come on. I'm messing with this TikTok. What's good, TikTok man? Welcome to Sometimes We Bougie, Sometimes We Hood. Like, why is this unavailable? I don't know what's going on. We having all kind of things today. I'm trying to get this to open. I see it. I want to click on it. All right. But anyway, we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep on moving. So, welcome to year 2. Sometimes we bougie, sometimes we hood. We have finished year 1, which is absolutely awesome. Way to go to us. Congratulations to us. This March, somewhere along in this month, we have our 1-year anniversary. But today we're talking about something like almost everybody's has heard of, right? Which is the stages of grief. And you see, we'll revisit these topics from time to time. We'll go back and revisit them because there's always so much information about the process of grief and the stages of grief and the different areas of grief. So, and we like to talk about, as I, always say, we talk about the realness of grief, right? Not the fantasy, not what's in the books, not the fairy tale, not what people think it is. We talk about grief, financial grief, grief from relationships, grief in grieving yourself from aging, grief from an injury, grief when you switch jobs or you lose your job. We talk about it all because it's very, very real. and we want to educate the public on the realness of this. So today we're going to go back and explore again a little bit more in depth the stages of grief, right? We all know them: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, right?
Thank you.
But I want to let me ask you something. So, Cousin Kareem, have those stages ever actually like matched your experience?
Yeah.
With grieving? Okay. Or did they like make you feel like something you were grieving, or make you feel like grieving was wrong at that particular time?
Yeah, there was a couple of times that I thought grieving was wrong. But then I realized that's just got to be part of the process, because I'm going through something that was torn apart, and it wasn't by my choice. And I think that's the weird question. Is like, is it by your choice? Did you have anything to do with it? Did you okay it? It's like you don't get together with somebody and then think, I'm going to be separate from them. You know what I mean? Because of said this and that. But that happened. And then you just trying to figure out why it happened and what was the steps that got to that. It's just a lot of weird structural things that happen that you just don't really know about and don't know how to express, really. Or accept. Yeah, accept. That's the word. Yeah.
Accept. Okay. That sounds
hit. You know, I got divorced. I had 2 sons. It was just, what do I do with them now? In the process, trying to take care of myself and pay the ex-wife. It was like it was a lot on top of each other. But I came through.
Right.
But it was a lot. There's nothing like set in stone as far as what you're supposed to do. Except just keep taking care of people that you're supposed to take care of, like my children. You know, it was really crazy. There was a point when I moved into my new apartment, and she had dropped the kids off, and I was trying to be nice, and so I let her in. And my friend who had moved off the island a couple of years ago was like, "Yo, I need to get everything out of my storage." So I took his TV. She was like, "You have a TV?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have a TV. Like, why wouldn't I have a TV?" It was it's just like the silly things that come out of people's mouths because they expect somebody not to recover. But it wasn't that bad of a recovery that I couldn't. But it was what it was. It was. I found it funny in a sense, but then it irritated me because she called me up irritated like later on. I'm just like, what does this have to do with you trying to provide for your children at the same time my children? Like, can we just coexist? She wanted me to struggle and be in all this other kind of like defiled state. And it was just like, that makes no sense.
So she kind of was like,
no sense.
Causing, like adding to the already uncomfortableness and the already grieving that you were going through because of the divorce, right? Yeah. Some people, unfortunately, some people are not happy unless other people are happy, right? Basically. But today, today we want to, unpack the truth again, about the stages of grief, right? And are they helpful to us, or do they quietly harm us? Right now, most people be like, how would grief like harm you, right? If you stay in it too long. So let's dive in. Let's go ahead and dive in of what the stages are really, right? Because we've had this conversation before about the stages of grief actually coming from or originating from the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right, in 1969. But here's what most people are here. Like, if you haven't studied grief, or if you're not a grief counselor or in the pastoral and they talk about grief and you've educated yourself about grief, here's what people don't know about her practice or how the discovery came about. And this is what's not talked about enough, right? Thank you. Welcome in TikTok fam. Again, welcome in Facebook, Instagram, YouTube family. Thank you for coming in. And sometimes we bougie, sometimes we hood. But here's what they don't talk about, right? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, when she created the stages of grief, when she created them, when she discovered them and put them out to the public, she talked about or was talking about them from the aspect of people who were in transition, not people who were grieving the loss. So think about that. When she created, when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross created or originated talking about grief, right? She was talking about the people who were transitioning, not the people who were doing the grieving, right? So these stages were never, they were never meant to explain how we grieve someone else. The stages were put and how the individual who was making the transition was grieving, like the stages they go through, not what we go through, right? So, quick breakdown of the stages of grief that we know: denial, this isn't happening; anger, why me, why them, why, right? The bargaining, if only I had enough time, if you please, please let this be me instead of you, them. Then you go into the depression, which is the deep sadness and the withdrawal, and then the acceptance, which is the coming to the terms of grief, right? Of the person, the place, the thing, the item, the whatever, right? But here's where grief can get complicated, right? The stages were not meant to be linear or predictable, and they're not universal, okay? But and we know society, and we know people who try to make it like a check mark in their brains, right? Especially those of us who are like A type personalities, you know what I'm saying? Or people who like structure, or the person that operates like Mike, like that mother who operates with checklists, or that father, whoever it is, that person, and they operate, my nose itches. They operate with a checklist, right? Done. Check this, check. But it's deeper than that, right? It goes much, much deeper than that. And I don't think people think about it. I don't think people really think about how deep grief can go, or how it flows. Because there is, let me say, there's no timeline, there's no rule book, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It just happens, right? So when we talk about the stages of grief, like we are referencing the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right? But when you really, really look at it, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't for her study wasn't for the bereaving family members or friends or co-workers, right? It was interviews with individuals, with people that were terminally ill, okay? People facing their own mortality. That's who she was interviewing. So again, like I said, the stages were originally conceptualized as a psychological response to impending transition or ending of life, right? So the map was not for those that are surviving the loss, right? And that distinction is not minor. It's foundational. It really is. And a lot of people, like I said, they don't, when you take a look at grief, if you study grieving, you'll get to, you'll learn that. So we're going to, talk about what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was actually observing
Okay.
when she did this documenting, right, of how individuals process loss, right? Oh, their transition. So one is the loss of control. Um, because you can't control it. You cannot control the transition at all. I don't know anybody who can, whether it's tragic, sudden, whether it's slow with being terminally ill. You know what I'm saying? You don't, whether it's just the aging process, you have no control of that, right? Then there's the anticipatory grief. We talked about that before, where you're waiting. That's the slow. That's the, you're gonna go because you're gonna have you go to transition because you're terminally ill with cancer or something else, Um, then there is the identity disruption, right?
Yeah, that
And
one's
that
different. What is that one?
identity disruption. So that's that separation, like, well, who am I? Or at this point of the ending of life, right? Who am I? What am I doing? Like, you almost question you question your entire existence, right? You question your entire existence. And then you have the existential fear, the fear of transition, the fear of moving on, because it's not as if, I mean, I haven't heard any stories, or I haven't met anyone that has made a transition and come back and been able to talk about it. I've heard about interviews. You hear interviews. You hear some people say they've had near ending of life experiences. I've heard somebody, actually I did, I heard somebody say they transitioned twice on the table and was brought back. However,
That's
there's
different.
no real conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, what did
Mm.
you experience? What did you see? How did you know that this is what was taking place with yourself, right? I have not had that conversation. I have not with anybody. I really haven't. So what she noticed, or what she experienced, when I say she, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross experienced, was that with the patients, was that, one, the denial, like, this can't be happening, that they're on the way. And then, of course, the anger, the why me? I got so much more to live for. I have so much more to do. I got grandkids. I have kids. I was I had a successful life, and then the bargaining. If I could just make it to, or if I could just live another year, and then things would get better. But these were like the in the moment coping responses to those individuals, right? They weren't fixed phases. They were fluid. They overlapped, and they were, based on that individual, right? Um and we go through that with, like, in our own life when we grieve, right? We go through that in our own life when we grieve. It is not fixed, right? They
No.
overlap. They do overlap. You could be sad and angry at the same time, right? You can
Yeah.
be sad and angry at the same time. You can be um depressed, or you can feel sad and in denial at the same time. There's, like I said, there's no particular order that these go in. So, and I think this is where, like, some maybe confusion, or there's like a generalization um that people are looking at, right?
Okay.
So, and then somewhere along the line, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work moved from, this is how some people process transitioning, to, this is how everyone processes grief. And
Hmm.
and that leap was like never really validated in a universal sense, right? But it became part of textbooks. It became part of clinical
Science.
diagnosis and science, right? It's like pop psychology doctrine, right? That's what it became. Okay. But with like clinical, if you want to say clinical precision, right? Let's like if we refine it, right? How we talk about it. Denial. Not just this isn't happening, right? It's a protective
defense mechanism or something.
Right. Against the emotional and psychological becoming overwhelmed, right? So you deal with the denial shows up to help as a buffer to what's taken place, because a lot of us live and continue to live in flight in survival mode. And you hear about this. This is like one of the major topics that's talked about these days about men and women, about them living in fight or flight mode, or living in survival mode, or living in a trauma induced mode where they're always on edge. You know what I'm saying? So with that denial can kick in. Denial as a buffer to whatever is already going on, right? To help them wrap their minds around the beginning of the grieving process, right? Then there's anger. So, in anger, we're not talking about rage, okay? We're not talking about rage or just being mad. You know what I'm saying? It's a displacement of fear, powerlessness, and abandonment. Okay. That's where the anger comes from. And most people are like, what? Why would I be angry? Because somebody, well, you see it. We see it often. Okay. And I just had this conversation over the weekend about when my mother passed, or my mother transitioned. I was angry with her. I was angry with her for leaving. I sure was. I was angry when when Deej was transitioned. I was pissed when my oldest son transitioned. You know what I'm saying? Those two, yeah, I was pissed behind that. I really was. So that would be the anger, because of the fact that I couldn't control either situation. I couldn't control those. They weren't for me to control, but I had no control in those situations. You know? What about you? Cousin Kareem, do you have an experience where, what about you? Matter of fact, what about with you and your mom? Like, did you experience any anger that arose when your mom transitioned? Like feeling like, man, how are you leaving me like this? Or feeling like, you had no control over the situation. And then just like with my dad, yeah, I was pissed. I think I handled it with grace, but I was pissed because, he didn't tell anybody he was sick. And, it was like literally 3 days later, from Christmas to December 28th, and he was gone.
Yeah.
He was gone.
Yeah, for me it wasn't. It was different in the sense that I had no idea she was like gonna be sick. It was like I used to ask this question, like, would you rather be with somebody when you know they're dying, or would you rather just be there after the fact? It's like the feelings I've had both situations, and it's you don't want to be in any of those situations. That's the reality of it. It's just like because when my mom passed, I had just sent her a birthday card, and then I sent her the boys on Mama, and on just like a single CD. I sent that to her, and then 2 weeks later, I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning from my brother saying that she passed, and it was just like, what? Like I'm like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning here in Hawaii. It's 9 o'clock in New York, and I'm like all of this stuff is like running through my head. Like, how am I going to get back there in time and all this kind of stuff? And it was crazy. The whole setup was really bewildering. That's the word I want to say. It was very bewildering. Right. Like you didn't know what to do or how to say anything. And, I called my aunt, and then she went over there, helped my brother out. The funny part was the thing that made me mad, I should say. Like I wasn't mad or upset about it, but I went over there for like 2 weeks, had everything set up, and then our other aunt, she decided to have our grandfather put his stuff in my mother's room. The basement was open. Basement, no flood, nothing like that. But she decided to use my mother's room that she had just passed away in as storage. So when I got there, that called me and said, yeah, she came over and she just did it. Then when I got there, the whole room was filled up with these Geritol smelling boxes. I called her, I said, you have 1 day to come and get this stuff out because garbage is tomorrow. You have 1 day. Right. No, garbage is in. I said, you have 1 day to come and get this stuff out. If you don't get this stuff out, stuff is going in the garbage. I said, did you hear what I said? Right. And that was it. That was the level of me getting mad.
But that was like a violation. You know what I'm saying? It was just like that was a violation it was a violation of like a sacred space, even though the house was a family house, what have you. It was a violation of sacred space in your eyes, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. It's like, how are you just gonna? And then why would you have a whole house? There's bedrooms and a basement. Why would you purposely dictate to move the stuff? Why would you do that? Right. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't make any sense in any sort of the way. You just gonna, oh yeah, just put the stuff in there. It's good. Yeah, they moved on. You know, it's like,
and it's with that, right. And I think some people just move that way. There are people who really do not know how to handle transitions of loved ones. And in their mind, it's like the faster they can get rid of their things, the faster they can turn things around, whether it's the room, the home, what have you, get rid of the vehicles that's easier for them. It's easier for them to deal with the loss versus those people who would rather hold on to things, right? Hold on to furniture, hold on to pictures and clothing, and that hold on to that stuff. So, but yeah, that's when it comes to anger, it's very much about fear, because we don't know what's going to happen next, depending on where that person was in your life, the powerlessness behind someone transitioning, and not you yourself not being able to control that, and abandonment again. And that abandonment is based off of the relationship you have with that individual, right? So let's talk about bargaining, right? So that bargaining is not just the if only, or if I could, right? It's a reflection, or it reflects an attempt to restore, right? In a situation where control is gone.
Mm.
It's right. It's to restore your power in a situation where control is gone, so to speak. You hear oftentimes when someone transition, if only I had enough time, or uh if only, oh, you hear woulda, coulda, shouldas, right? If only I had talked to them more, or if only I heard in my mind, or I should have went to see her that day, and
Yeah, the
him.
shoulda, woulda, couldas. The shoulda, woulda, couldas.
Yeah, all coulda, woulda, couldas. I should have, I woulda, I coulda, and that is just, it's like you said, it's an attempt to restore the control that was taken away. That's what the bargaining is for those of us that are still living. When it comes to, sorry, Auntie Mimosa is exhausted. When it comes to that depression. Well, no, let's back up. With individuals in your life that you know, do you have any, as they say, woulda, coulda, shoulda moments?
No,
No.
I was with my mom, grandma. I mean, it was no, there weren't, because it was like, I guess I believe that whatever happened, what could have happened, but you
Mm-hmm.
had no control over
Right.
it. So I don't really think on those levels. It was just a matter of, it was, I wish I had done, more. I wish I had maybe have done something different. And it took me a while. Like, I actually had to write stuff down. Like, I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have did that. I wish and then I just started going through those wishes. Like, what would have changed if you had done that? What would have been better or worse if I had done that? And it just, as I went down that list, which wasn't a big list, maybe like 5 things, it was, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't have been able to do this. I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to, and it was just, that's just what it was. It wasn't anything really set that I had to do. Like, this would have definitely changed anything. Like, if I was in New York, what would have been the difference? You know what I mean? If I had been in Florida, Georgia, or something like that, what would have been the difference?
Right.
Would have changed anything? And so I just kind of just went with that. I didn't make any, I didn't boohoo and cry about the what ifs.
Right.
That's
Right.
my choices, because I knew that what happened just happened. It wasn't anything I could have done to change anything.
Right.
That's just the way it was.
Gotcha.
But in other people's situations, it's weird, because looking from the outside, it's like, you can see, oh, yeah, you could have, you should have, you could have. It's just like, what? Like, and then you sit back and you think about what you said after you said it. You're like, oh yeah, my bad. I didn't mean to say that out loud. Yeah.
Right. I think I would
alone.
Right. Exactly. So when it comes to woulda, coulda, shoulda moments, when it comes to grieving and loss, right? I would say my woulda, coulda, shouldas were like through financial grieving. And I think we all have experienced that one, right? The financial grief, when you have some money and you kind of plan what you're going to do with this money. Then when you get it, you go in another direction. You're like, oh, I should have did this, or I should have did that differently. Or, when it comes to like losing, financially, or I've had those. those moments when it comes to bargaining, right? In anger, in denial about the like financial loss.
Yeah.
When it comes to loss about thank you. When it comes to loss about thank you, friend. When it comes to like grieving or going through that bargaining anger, anger and the wood bargaining when it comes to grief, I would say Deej, yes, I had the woulda, coulda, shoulda moment with him, um, because, like I said, it was sudden. His transition was sudden, right?
Yeah.
And I got you, dear. I got you. I got your friend. His transition was sudden, and I had seen him. Maybe as the last time I saw him was about 2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior. I had went to North Carolina and it was with my dad and a friend, and we had lunch together, and we had such a really great time. And in my mind I was like, oh, if I knew, my thing like the bargaining was like, if I knew that was the last time I was going to see him, I would have hugged him tighter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was like the woulda, coulda, shoulda moment with Deej. Like I said, had those with finances, with relationships, ending relationships. Yeah, I've had those woulda, coulda, shouldas. With the ending of relationships, more or less of I should have ended this earlier. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm being real. Like I said, look, sometimes we bougie, sometimes
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
are very real about talking about this. So when it comes to the woulda, coulda, shouldas, right, the relationship side of it, and again, like we say, we talk about every aspect. So I'm visiting these aspects, right? Employment. There was some woulda, coulda, shouldas. However, like at the ending of employment and moving on to something new. But I think again that was kind of like I should have did this sooner. And then after it's over, it's the breath of fresh air. Like, whoo, I dodged that bullet, right? When it comes to like the employment woulda, coulda, shoulda, kind of grieving employment or being sad, but at the end it was more, I would say it's more or less like the thank you. You know what I'm saying? There was no depression. I guess that's part of the acceptance, right? Skip
Yeah.
over the depression, went to the acceptance, and it's like, okay, thank you. What did I learn from this, right? But grieving the loss of a loved one is different. Grieving yourself as as we age is very different. Like, and you probably can't. I mean, some people do go through the woulda, coulda, shouldas as they age, or the if only I ate healthier, and then like with becoming ill, right? Because
Yeah.
we grieve ourselves when we have an injury. We grieve ourselves when we become sick or experiencing some kind of illness that we have to fight through, right? So with that in mind, it's if only I did this when I was younger, if I ate healthier, if I exercised more, oh, if only I didn't do extracurricular recreational activities, right? I gotta remember I'm on TikTok, right? And social media platforms. So y'all know what I'm talking about. If only I didn't, if I did less of this, or if I kept my health up. So that all of that, people go through that in their lives. The bargaining, right? And the woulda, coulda, shouldas. We all go through it. We all go through it on every single level, on every single experience that we have in life as we continue through to navigate this journey, right? We all go through it. We all go through it. So, um, let's talk about, like you said, depression. Of course, depression is not necessarily like the clinical depression. When it comes to grieving, it's like it's sorrow, right? It's sorrow. It's the hurt. It's the missing of the person, the place, the thing that we lost. It's withdrawal from emotional processing, right? That's what it is. That's what that is. And it's the feeling, the feeling down, or the nostalgia, feeling nostalgic, when you have these experiences, right. So just like, it's like, this is March brings a bunch of great things, and it brings a bunch of stirred up feelings, for myself. So of course, we said Cousin Cream and I, we celebrate 1 year of Sometimes We Bougie, Sometimes We Hood being a podcast. On the other side of March for me, this, I have the celebratory side, and then the other side is like the 10-year anniversary of my mother's transition. So I had a weekend, that moment last weekend, when I was feeling, or leading up to that, I went through the emotional processing of the fact that it had been 10 years, and how fast time has went by, and how fast it moves, and looking at that, and like, wow, uh it's, and then reflection, like, definitely in a different place, definitely have grown, definitely have matured, you know what I'm saying? Then it's the look back, and then some family members didn't remember, and I guess that was their way of letting go, um and I get it. Everybody's different. Everyone is different. Everyone, right? um and then we go and move to acceptance. And like I said, in these stages of grief, they do not, it's not a checkbox. It's like, not, it's not the, oh, I'm in denial, oh, I'm angry now, oh, I'm bargaining, oh, I'm going to the sorrow and the depression, oh, I'll just move to acceptance. It is not like that all the time. You might be in acceptance and bounce to the bargaining, to denial, to anger, to, being sad. You bounce all over the place. And then it also depends on what is going on at that time with you, right? Um, and the acceptance, right? And the acceptance is probably the most misunderstood concept when it comes to grieving, because it does not mean you're at peace. It does not mean that you have established closure. It doesn't mean that there's a resolution or a solution to the grief, right? All it means
Yeah.
is that you recognize the reality of it, and you don't like it. Even if you don't like it, you recognize the reality. You recognize the reality that that person, place, thing is gone. You're no longer your old self. You no longer have that money. You no longer have that relationship. You no longer have that job. You're no longer your 20, 30, 40, depending on what age you are, 50-year-old self. You no longer, you had that, knee injury. You no longer have a great knee or a good knee. You no longer have that good hand, that younger hand, right? It's recognition of the reality. And you don't have to like it. You don't.
That's
And
the
that's
strong part about it. That's the difficult part about it. We always look at things as something happens, it's supposed to be on a good form, but it's never that
right.
way always.
Mm-mm. 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 No, it's not. So it's just like, what is chaos, right? There's chaos. Most people think, oh, chaos, that there's disorder, right? Disruption. It's just a jarble. Um, but chaos would, and I learned this. I read this on a card, um, that the uh, it's either it's an Asian concept behind chaos, and that is in order to begin something, you have to end something. So that's chaos. In order to begin something, you have to end something. Chaos, right?
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to grief and these stages of grief, some people would say like they're chaotic because one ends, another one begins. Um, like we said, there is no timeline. I say this we both say this, there's no timeline, there's no rule book, there's no right of way, there's no, it's not peaceful, it's not comforting. Every person experiences it in their own way. Every single person. No two people grieve the same way. No two people grieve the same way. I don't grieve the way Cousin Kareem does. Cousin Kareem doesn't grieve the way that I do. Our experiences are different, right? When we move. So let's disrupt the myth, right? About the sequence of these stages. And there's no evidence like that grief unfolds in a clean progression, right? Like I said, the denial, then move to anger, then move to bargaining, then depression, then acceptance. No, it's not. And some people want to treat it that way. Some counselors will treat it that way. Oh, you moving through these stages of grief. And that's one of the things that I know I work very hard. Oh my goodness, y'all! I'm so sorry. And one of the things I work through is that we practice, I guess, to explain to people that we practice grief in cycles, right? It's and then re-entry or reoccurrence or co-occurrence, and they're depending on where you are, what you're doing, what the situation is, the person that you're grieving, the place, the thing, the situation that you're grieving is how it shows up. When it shows up, why does it show up? Like I said, for the month of March, March is nostalgic for me because there's some birthdays in March of people, men in my family that are no longer here, my uncle, grandfather, other uncles and relatives. It's the transition anniversary of my mom. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just a host. March is just it's a heavy month for me. However, like the navigation through it, I'm pretty cool. I'm nostalgic about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty even keeled through my emotions, and I can say that I'm that way now due to doing the research, talking about grief and how it affects every aspect of our lives, and educating the public on this. Right? That's where it is. What about you, Cousin Kareem? How do you feel about the stages? Like in this concept of them coming and going?
It's kind of it's a weird situation. I feel that I had the time with them, but for some reason I always go to the mental aspect of what was going on in their mind when they left. Like, they don't have to deal with any of the stuff of life anymore. anymore. They don't have to try to prove anything. They don't have to try to build anything. They don't have to try to fix anything. It's just they're already in the essence of whatever now, of freedom, not whatever, but freedom. So it's just they're free of living this focused life of trying to get something, trying to dig something up. So I mean, it's. I guess I've let go. I've let go of a lot of things. You know, I just don't take anything too seriously, especially now that I'm getting older. And it's just like where before, you know what it is? It's like before, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like before, when you were like in your 30s,
right?
You were like, nah, it's me against the world. It's like, nah, what do I have to offer? What I have this, and now it's like, my kids, my grandkids. It's just like it's a whole different being of living and existing now. It's like, what do I have to show them? And
right. It is different. It's very different. It's very different. As we become older, right? But the thing about it is, with some of us, as we age, we become more mature. We're able to reflect back and look at like the reason behind grieving, the purpose behind grieving. Sometimes grieving leaves scars, right? It does. Sometimes grieving leaves scars. Sometimes grieving leaves behind mistrust, right? And somebody be like, what? How is that possible? Again, depending on the situation, the person that you're grieving, or the loss, whether it's financial, emotional, mentally, if it's employment, if it's a relationship, you know what I'm saying? Whatever one of those is situational, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? There's a lesson learned, and then the aspect of grieving, because at one you could be fine, acceptance in the morning, get up, go. By noon you could be angry, and by nightfall you're you're in deep longing, you know what I'm saying? All in the same day. All in the same day, without fail. All in the same day. You can move through each stage. You might even move through it within an hour, depending on what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Not just you might move through the whole thing in 1 hour. It all depends on you, the person, right? But it's like, when it becomes a checklist, right? When grieving becomes a checklist, that checklist, it can be problematic, right? Because it's like performance pressure, to get this. Might ask, did I get angry? Why am I still depressed? Why am I still holding this? Why I should be over this by now, right?
Well, let me ask you this. Yeah. What is the stages? What is depression? Because I went through a phase of thinking that I knew what depression was. Like, oh, it's only the phase of, feeling blue, crying and stuff like that. Then I was told it's not that. It's just there's more to it. There's more to it.
Right. It is. It really is. So, but when it comes to that, it's especially when it comes to loss, it's internal. It's like internal and existential, out internal and outside sorrow that's seen. It's being withdrawn emotionally, you know what I'm saying? It's you might feel numb. You may be overexhausted. You may be tired, unable to focus. You don't want to get out of bed because life just seems too hard. You know what I'm saying? When it comes on to that for grieving. You know what I'm saying? Now, overall, when you want to talk about, you know, depression as a whole, that's a whole nother topic. I would prefer to have a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor talk about it from that aspect and about why. But I always say, you know, I said this the last couple of times that grief is the precursor or the prequel, right? It's the prequel. Grief is the prequel to depression. It's probably what starts it or kicks it off because you don't know, you haven't labeled what you're feeling. You haven't labeled or recognized why you're feeling this way about that situation, about that person or that place, that thing that you're missing, that you have that loss over. Right? So that's what we, you know, that's what I look at. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
So any final thoughts as we close? Or there'll be a part two because believe me, we didn't touch on that was only segment one. Like everything we talked about was still part of segment one. We haven't even hit segment two as to where and how grief can become harmful. So we're gonna touch on that next Sunday. So that's part two. That's gonna be part two, where and how grief can become harmful in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
any feedback? Yeah, any feedback, cousin Kareem? Any thoughts?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I just that next week one, that's pretty good. There's a lot of places that you can put when you put grief. If you don't face it, you can take control. Excuse me. Over what you're thinking and what you're doing. You just don't even know until somebody's like, "What? Why are you doing that?"
Right.
And it takes somebody who cares about you to witness and observe that, and then comment about it, because you might be doing everything good, and they look at you like, you should always keep your hair cut and stuff like that, and keep your hair done, and now it's just you come to work like
you don't care,
you
right?
You come to the meetings and or the after work session or whatever, and you ain't keeping it tight. Is everything good? And you're like, what? And then you go home, look in the mirror, and you're like, oh.
You're like, did I forget something?
I'm glad you noticed.
Sometimes it takes somebody else to point it out to you, right? Oh, goodness. Real. So, of course, that's right. As we always say, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who's been trying to do grief right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, and as we always say, there is no right way to grieve. There's no wrong way to grieve. There is only your way to grieve, right? And grief is proof that something or someone mattered in your life, okay? And whether, you're grieving a person, a place, or grieving a version of yourself, it all deserves space. It all deserves space, recognition, and a name, right? So you can, again, we would love to hear from you. If this episode resonated with you, please feel free to like, follow, share. Please feel free to like, follow, share. On Instagram, you can reach us at Queen of Life Empowerment or SBSH Grief Podcast. On Facebook at Sometimes We Bougie, Sometimes We Hood. On TikTok at Sometimes Bougie, Sometimes Hood. On YouTube, we're at Sometimes We're Bougie, Sometimes We Hood, where you can watch a lot of the older episodes that we've created. or you can email us at sometimesbougie@gmail.com. Again, sometimesbougie@gmail.com. I always mix up this email address because I want to say the whole thing and it's not the whole thing. But anyway, but be sure, like, follow, share, subscribe. Your comments, your stories, they matter to Cousin Kareem and I. We would love to hear from you if you want to be a guest on the show. Again, email us at sometimesbougie@gmail.com, or reach out to us on any of the social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Okay. And of course, you don't have to walk this road in silence. Please take gentle care of yourself, because you are carrying the most beautiful love there is. And even in transition, life transition, your love and your light still matters. So until next time, part 2, we talk about how grieving can be harmful to us. So join us next Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then,
peace.
It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembering.